Ladies and gentlemen, please rise to receive Mr Michel Barnier, Head of the Task Force for Relations with the United Kingdom. Thank you. And if you'll kindly take your seats. And so, without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Dr Joanne Murphy, Director of the William J. Clinton Leadership Institute, to begin proceedings. Joanne.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Joanne Murphy, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you to the third William J. Clinton Leadership Lecture. As you know, President Clinton gave his name to our institute, which is a part of Queen's Management School, and I am privileged to be its interim director within the wider structure of the school. This leadership lecture has previously been delivered by Bill Clinton himself and also F.W. de Klerk, and we are delighted to have Michel Barnier here this evening to carry on that extraordinary legacy. Bill Clinton spoke about the need to build bridges to the future. The Clinton Institute was established to build leadership capacity in this region, on these islands and beyond, building bridges to new economies, new sectors and new opportunities. You are all here because you are leaders in one way or another. We in the Institute exist to support you and those who will follow you in your diverse and your exciting leadership journeys. We work from the principle of evidence-based decision-making and the power of research and inquiry, giving you access to world-class research here at Queen's and through our international partnerships. Our focus is on building strong, impactful and diverse strategic partnerships with business, government and society, and we are delighted to see so many of our partners here in this room this evening. I would invite you to take some time later this evening to explore the information provided in the brochures on your chairs. Myself and my colleagues would be delighted to speak to you further about our plans for the future and the work that we will continue to do within the Clinton Institute. Now I have the great pleasure of introducing our President and Vice-Chancellor, Professor Ian Greer.
So, ladies and gentlemen, can I add my welcome to that of Joanne? It's great to see so many of you here in Queen's tonight for this lecture. And I'd like to offer a very warm welcome to our guest speaker, Michel Barnier, in advance of his Clinton Leadership Lecture, Reflections on Brexit and the European Union. Now, I should say that some of our colleagues from the Assembly have been delayed at Stormont today as they mark the passing of Seamus Mallon, but they do hope to join us later. Now, Joanne has told you a little bit about the Clinton Leadership Institute and its work as part of the management school here at Queen's. And it has made a real difference to many organisations by developing its strategic leadership capacity. But arguably one of the greatest challenges to leadership in the present day, in these islands at least, is Brexit. So tonight's lecture is timely, not least because we're on the cusp of Brexit, 31st of January, just in case you'd forgotten. And at that point, the UK and EU embark on a transition period with negotiations focused on a new trade deal. Queen's, like other universities, has numerous challenges arising from Brexit. However, I'd like to recast them as major opportunities to make a real difference. Opportunities to lead and develop new initiatives. And I guess there are three main areas that we'd like to focus on. We'd like to continue to drive European and international research collaboration, which has been so well supported by European funding. We'd like to look at new approaches to staff and student mobility, which is absolutely critical in our sector as we want to drive knowledge economies. And here in the island of Ireland, we've got specific opportunities where I think working across this island could make a real difference. In health, in cybersecurity, in agri-food, in sustainability. The challenges we face across the island are the same, so we should work together. So it's critical that we have a strong relationship with the Republic of Ireland, who have been making a massive investment into research and innovation and into their higher education system, an investment of over €2 billion to make a real difference. Universities make a real difference to the economies. Here in Queen's, we deliver £1.9 billion per year of economic impact to the UK. And we're not exceptional. Many universities will deliver that type of performance. So we are crucial to driving the economy forward. And it's important as we embark on this new journey that we think about how we develop and fund place-based initiatives that can drive forward the economies on both sides of the border on this island. And of course, East and West also to take advantages of the UK's industrial strategy, where Northern Ireland can play a real role. So with these challenges, it will be invaluable to have the perspective of our guest speaker, Michel Barnier. He's become very well known in these islands over the past few years as European Chief Negotiator for the UK exiting the EU, and now as Head of the Task Force for Relations with the UK. And I guess it's no surprise that he was given these roles in view of his experience. A career spanning almost 50 years with both French national and European politics, starting, I think, at age 27 when he became a member of the French National Assembly, serving on several French cabinets with ministerial positions, including Minister for Foreign Affairs, a European Commissioner with responsibility for regional policy and institutional reform. In 2009, after being elected an MEP, he was appointed European Commissioner for Internal Market and Services, and he handled many important areas for the financial sector reform, the banking union and the digital single market. So when the President of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, wanted an experienced politician for this difficult job, referring to Brexit, Michel Barnier was perhaps the obvious choice. And now that the UK's position is clear, he can turn his sights on future relations between the EU and the UK. So we're really grateful to you for taking the time to come and talk to us this evening, and we look forward to hearing you. So please join me and welcome our guest speaker, Michel Barnier.
Ladies and gentlemen, all distinguished guests, Vice-Chancellor, Professor Jan Greer, thank you very much for your kind words. It's true that I have been the youngest member of the French National Assembly. It's a title you lose very quickly. Huh? And you have to be humble. It is a real pleasure to be in Queen's University, Belfast this evening. Real pleasure. And it is an honor to deliver the William Clinton Leadership Lecture. I know it is a sad day for Northern Ireland today, and my thoughts are with the family and the friends of Seamus Mallon. He played a fundamental role in the peace process. He was one of the architects of the Good Friday Belfast agreements. Ladies and gentlemen, Queen's University shares its motto with the city of Belfast, pro tanto quid retribuamus. For so much, what shall we give in return? This captures the societal responsibility of your university. Your dedication to cutting-edge research is a testimony to that motto. And here, researchers like Dr Joanne Murphy, Professor Richard English, and many others address some of the world's biggest societal challenges: food security, cancer, cybercrime, terrorism, and conflict. On Brexit, researchers such as Dr. Katy Hayward or Professor David Phinnemore has made an important contribution to the debate in Northern Ireland, in Westminster, and beyond. Thanks to you, Northern Ireland's unique political, social, and economic reality is understood more broadly. So for so much, what shall we give in return? Anyone who holds public office should reflect on this question, including myself, as the EU chief negotiator for a new partnership with the United Kingdom. Ladies and gentlemen, over the last 3 years, I have had the privilege of working with an exceptional team. Together, we enjoyed the trust of the former Commission President, Jean-Claude Juncker, and now the new President, Ursula von der Leyen, the former Council President, Donald Tusk, and now Charles Michel, the 27 united member states, united governments, and the European Parliament, with first Martin Schulz and Antonio Tajani, and now David Sassoli. With such trust comes a great responsibility. The responsibility to work hand in hand with the elected representatives in the European Parliament, the EU leaders in the European Council, ministers, and members of national parliaments in the member states. The responsibility to clearly explain our positions to all those affected. The responsibility to ensure a high level of transparency, perhaps an unusual level of transparency, in this negotiation. The responsibility to engage respectfully with UK negotiators who represent a great nation, one which has been part of the EU for 47 years. We have always stuck, and we will always stick to this line: no aggressiveness, no punishment, no spirit of revenge, no frustration or impatience when the House of Commons was unable to agree on what kind of Brexit it wanted. We have always respected the ongoing debate in the UK, and we will continue to do so. Lastly, we had, and we still have, the responsibility to encourage a genuine public debate on Brexit, on how it affects the EU and the UK, and in particular, Ireland and Northern Ireland. And frankly speaking, this debate has not always been easy. Just look at my Twitter account. But it is important. People must be aware of the consequences. Because, ladies and gentlemen, it is absolutely clear that there will be negative consequences. The UK Chancellor Said Javid recognized last week that parts of industry will face a negative fallout. Whatever agreement we reach on our future relationship, Brexit will always be a matter of damage limitation, always. And no one single person, no one, from the UK or elsewhere, has ever convinced me of the added value of Brexit. No one. At least with the withdrawal agreement, which has now been ratified by the UK, and will be agreed by the European Parliament, I hope, next week, or this week, sorry, on Wednesday, we have managed to secure an orderly Brexit for now, one that limits the destruction of value for our citizens and businesses. And this is also our objective going forward. I am once again pleased to be in Northern Ireland to explain where we stand in the process and our position going forward, but also to listen and engage. This is, ladies and gentlemen, my third visit to Northern Ireland in my current role. I've been to the border a number of times. I walked on the Peace Bridge in Derry, Londonderry. I've engaged with politicians of all parties, students, business owners, and I am sure that the Northern Ireland Rural Women's Network in Dungannon remembers how moved I was by my meeting with them, and I talk about it very often, because Brexit is first and foremost about people. And I can still remember their words, never again, never again. Ladies and gentlemen, the European Union has always been a peace project, and we are reminded of that today, an Holocaust Memorial Day. After years of devastating war and conflict, European integration transformed the meaning of national borders. The genius of the founding fathers of the EU was to focus on open trade and economic exchange as an element of peace, not just prosperity. This was true for France and Germany in the 1915s. It was always true, and also true, when the Berlin Wall and the Iron Curtain came down. The EU gradually became a community of 28 countries, reuniting the continent and breaking down borders. Today, people, goods, services, and capital can circulate freely from one member state to another. This is the single market. And the single market, ladies and gentlemen, is much more than a free trade zone. It is an ecosystem that Europeans build together every day with common laws and regulations, common rights and standards for workers and consumers, common standards for the environment, common supervision mechanism, and on top of this, a common jurisdiction, the Court of Justice of the European Union. It is an ecosystem that the UK contributed to for 47 years. An ecosystem that builds trust between countries, and with it, prosperity, fairness, and most importantly, peace. And once again, the UK contributed a lot to these achievements, and it benefited enormously from the single market. That is perhaps why Brexit came as such a shock to so many. In June 2016, 52% of the people of the United Kingdom voted to leave the European Union. Indeed, considerably less here in Northern Ireland at 44%. But the general election that took place in December last year confirmed the UK government's mandate to get Brexit done. And so, the UK will leave the EU in just 4 days. I do not forget this date. Ladies and gentlemen, Brexit is meant to be about taking back control. But what else does it mean? It means creating trade barriers that do not exist today. The decision to stop free movement means stopping citizens from moving freely between the EU and the UK to study, work, or retry. Brexit is about diverging from EU rules developed together with the UK, once again, that protect the public interest, guarantee open and fair competition, and thereby allow frictionless trade. Brexit is also meant to be about global Britain. But for us, frankly speaking, it is the EU that helps make member states more global. Even without the UK, the EU forms a single market of 450 million people, a truly global market. Our economic power allows us to stand proudly on the world stage, to speak with other superpowers as equals on questions such as the economy, climate change, security and trade. There is no way that any of our countries alone could have the same impact, especially as other economic giants emerge around the world. Let me just now show you two simple slides, two tables. The first one has a particular history because it has been published for the first time by David Cameron. I was at that time the commissioner in charge of the single market, and to prove the importance of the single market for the UK, he published a document to support what I was doing, not on the regulation, not on the financial services, but on single market. And this slide is very clear. By 2050, no individual European countries can expect to be among the global top 5 economies in the world. Not the UK, not even Germany. And the second one, my production is clear also, using the same figures. Together, the EU 27 will remain in the top 4. Just a few days ago, Chancellor Merkel compared the EU to life insurance for her country. She recognized that in today's global environment, and I quote, Germany is far too small to exert geopolitical influence on its own. For that, she said, it needs the single market. This is why our single market is so crucial to us, and it is why there will be no compromise on the single market for us. And yet, in the UK, it seems that many still believe that they can leave the EU institutions, leave the biggest trading bloc in the world, depart from regulations that they help to put in place without experiencing any negative side effects. Ladies and gentlemen, Northern Ireland will be the part of the UK most impacted by Brexit. Why? Northern Ireland has a specific constitutional and legal setup, both in terms of governance and in terms of cooperation with Ireland. The Good Friday Belfast Agreement set up specific cross-community, power-sharing governance structures here in Northern Ireland. Thanks to that, people like David Trimble, John Hume, and of course Seamus Mallon, Martin McGuinness, and Jan Paisley could find solutions to accommodate the different identities and competing political views across Northern Ireland. This work needed political courage and hard work from politicians across Northern Ireland. They managed, with the help of the Irish and British governments, and notably Bertie Ahern, thank you to be here tonight, and Tony Blair. And let's not forget the role of others, like Bill Clinton, George Mitchell, or Hillary Clinton, this university's new chancellor. The Good Friday Belfast Agreement was and still is indispensable for progress. The Good Friday Belfast Agreement allowed and still allows the people of Northern Ireland to identify themselves as British or Irish or both and be accepted as such. So you can choose to be British, Irish, very British with a bit of Irish, more Irish than British, Irish and European, British and European. Others might think of themselves as Northern Irish or Northern Irish and European, or indeed Northern Irish and anti-European. This multitude of identities is a distinctive aspect of Northern Ireland. Similarly, Stormont is not based on the rule of the majority, but on the power sharing and compromise, an essential element of building peace. And indeed, frankly speaking, once again, we missed Stormont during the negotiation on Brexit and Northern Ireland. Although I met with Northern Ireland's leader many times in the last few years, the requests were always to meet separately with one party, never to meet together. And this afternoon, I met with Sinn Féin's Deputy First Minister, Michel O'Neill, together with DUP Economy Minister Diane Dodds, representing the First Minister Arlene Foster. So I'm very glad to see the Legislative Assembly restored. Finally, I think it's fair to say that the fact that both Ireland and the UK were members of the EU were also very important in bringing stability to the island of Ireland, because they shared the same rules and had a common trade policy. Companies could trade in a frictionless way without checks or custom procedures. Ladies and gentlemen, very early on in the withdrawal negotiations, both the EU and the UK acknowledged that the situation in Northern Ireland was unique and that it required a specific solution, a solution that was legally operative and could reconcile the many different interests at play, in particular, avoiding a hard border between Ireland and Northern Ireland and preserving the whole island economy in the interest of peace and security, but also preserving the integrity of the EU single market and all its guarantees for consumer protection, public and animal health. And finally, respecting the place of Northern Ireland as an integral part of the United Kingdom's internal market. Of course, finding common ground was not easy, I can tell you. But the EU was tireless in its efforts. We listened to Irish concerns, to Northern Irish and British concerns. We mapped out North-South cooperation with the UK. We investigated different options. We went back to the drawing table various times to design new measures or to reassure. With Prime Minister Theresa May, we had found an agreement on a UK-wide backstop. This meant the whole of the UK forming a single customs territory with the EU, unless and until, backstop, unless and until a better solution could be found. Many people in Northern Ireland acknowledged the benefits of having a backstop. But there were also fears in Westminster that the UK could get trapped in a customs union with the EU for an indefinite period of time without its own trade policy. And despite reassurances that we enshrined in law, Westminster was not convinced that the EU has no intention of acting in bad faith. So, in summer 2019, the Prime Minister Boris Johnson asked us to abandon the backstop. He wanted a permanent solution, not a temporary one that enables the UK to deploy its own independent trade policy immediately after the transition period. And again, we showed flexibility and understanding. And we found an agreement also with the personal support of the Taoiseach Leo Varadkar. Ladies and gentlemen, the protocol on Ireland and Northern Ireland that we have agreed indeed is complex but operational. It allows Northern Ireland to remain in the UK customs territory and at the same time benefit from access to the single market without tariffs, quotas, checks or control. The protocol is not an insurance policy but a workable system built to last. And importantly, it gives the elected representatives of Northern Ireland's Legislative Assembly the right to decide whether to continue applying the system or not 4 years after it starts to apply. I look forward to the Northern Ireland's executive playing a stronger role on this matter now that it's up and running. Implementing this new system will be a big challenge for the next few weeks and months, in particular for UK authorities. In agreeing to the protocol, the UK has agreed to a system of reinforced check and control for goods entering Northern Ireland from Great Britain. I understand, ladies and gentlemen, I understand the fears of negative economic fallout expressed by some about these checks. But once again, Brexit unfortunately has consequences that we must manage. The UK has chosen to become a third country, to leave the single market and to leave the customs unions, to leave behind the EU's framework of common rules, common supervision and common court of justice. It has chosen to create two regulatory spaces. This makes frictionless trade impossible. It makes checks indispensable. We will need sanitary and phytosanitary checks on food products and live animals. The EU must be able to assess risks on any products coming into its market and, if necessary, activate physical controls. These checks must take place somewhere. And as the whole point of the protocol is to avoid a hard border and protect the whole island economy, it was clear that they could not take place at the land border between Ireland and Northern Ireland. The only real option was to use Northern Ireland's other entry points. This is also where such checks are the easiest to implement. And control will also take place in Dublin and in the other EU entry points. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now the EU and the UK's joint responsibility to make this agreement work on the ground. The EU takes this responsibility very seriously, and let's be clear, we have been creative, we have been flexible in finding a workable solution, but it is a detailed legal text. It is a detailed legal text. Now it's time to implement it precisely. The withdrawal agreement must be applied with rigor and discipline by all sides. It cannot be reopened under the guise of implementation. We will be monitoring its correct application very carefully. This is also true of the other crucial element covered in the withdrawal agreement, namely citizens' rights. Whilst Northern Ireland will no longer be part of the EU, people born and raised here that choose to be Irish citizens will still be EU citizens. This means they can continue to move and reside freely within the EU. The UK has committed to upholding their rights, and they cannot be discriminated against on the basis of nationality. The withdrawal agreement will also protect the rights of all British nationals living in the EU and their family for life. The Commission will make sure that each and every one of the 27 member states lives up to their commitment. But we will also be watching closely to make sure that the UK government does the same for the more than 3 million EU citizens residing in the UK. I've already raised the issue with Stephen Barclay, the UK Secretary of State for Exiting the EU, and we will continue to be particularly vigilant to this, in particular to the setup of the Independent Monitoring Authority. This body must be truly independent and deal effectively with complaints from Union citizens and their families. Ladies and gentlemen, the EU will never turn its back to its citizens, never. And the EU will not turn its back on Northern Ireland, even at its leave the Union, never. The peace funding program, which since 1995, and in which I was myself responsible as the Commissioner for Regional Policy, supports peace and reconciliation and promotes economic and social progress in Northern Ireland and the border region of Ireland. This program will continue. This is a sign of our commitment to peace and stability here. You can continue to count on our support. Ladies and gentlemen, the withdrawal agreement settles all aspects of the UK's divorce from the EU. It also provides us with at least 11 months of continuity. We will need this time to implement all the points I've just mentioned. But we also need this time, and probably more, to build a new partnership. Because the reality is that we have to rebuild everything with the UK. I just mentioned this morning in Dublin that leaving the EU, the single market and the customs union means for the UK to leave mechanically, automatically 600 international agreements. 600. So we have to rebuild everything. And we will rebuild everything. Negotiating the future partnership between the EU and the UK is so another huge challenge. A new clock is ticking. 11 months is extremely short. Prime Minister Johnson has said he will not extend this period. This means that the UK will leave the single market and the customs union at the end of this year. This is a UK choice, not our choice, but we respect it, and we will do everything we can in the short time that it's made available. Never will it be the EU that fails on common ambition. Never. But this is clearly a unique situation. Since its inception, the EU has been in the business of removing borders, not creating them. Our aim has been to bring Europeans closer to each other, students, researchers, professionals, employees, entrepreneurs, pensioners. Now, the UK wants a stricter migration policy that may apply to EU and non-EU nationals alike, possibly as early as 2021. Similarly, when we negotiate with third countries, our aim is usually to remove barriers to trade. We do this by aligning standards and regulations. The EU has even become so good at this that many of its standards, many of these regulations, have become the gold standard internationally. Our regulatory influence goes well beyond our borders because of the size of our single market. And our high standards are the reason why our trade and investment partners trust us. They are a core part of our competitive edge. Aligning with our standards may have a price, but the return is access to our single market. Our standards testify to the quality and safety of our products and services, whether it's an EU logo or a toy or a geographical indication for agricultural products. But they are also a testimony to our dedication to continuously improving working rights, to raising environmental standards and leading the fight against climate change, to fighting tax fraud and evasion, and to ensuring fair and open competition. In our joint political declaration on our future relationship, the UK agreed that we need common standards to avoid unfair competitive advantage. So, when it tells us it does not want to align with EU standards and regulation in the future, it is not clear to me, not clear for the moment, where or by how much it wishes to diverge on standards relating to the safety and quality of products or on those relating to fair competitions. It's not clear to me, not yet, whether when the UK leaves the EU and the single market, it will also choose to leave Europe's societal and regulatory model. That is the key questions. And we are waiting for an answer, because that answer during this negotiation will be key for our future relationship. And to be frank, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that our UK friends are reflecting carefully on this issue and on this answer. Because the UK cannot accept high-quality access to our single market expect high-quality access to our single market if it insists on competing on stated policy, social, and environmental standards. I will not want to be misunderstood. Competition between our economies is not a bad thing. Countries compete with each other also within the single market. But competition needs to be based on common high level of standards to make sure it is fair. Once again, the UK is faced with a choice. Our ambition, the EU's ambition, is to create a close economic partnership, one that is based on a level playing field. That is the only way we will be able to achieve a truly ambitious deal. A deal that benefits both sides, a deal that is fair for our workers, our taxpayers, businesses, and for the planet. A deal that, even if it will never match what we have now, lives up to our ambition to remain the best of friends and allies. And of course, an ambitious partnership, to be frank, cannot be limited to trade, but must also cover many issues and many challenges on internal and external security, and obviously defense, security, the stability of the continent. Ladies and gentlemen, it is clear that the negotiations on the future EU-UK relationship will be a prominent focus in 2020, but this will not be on our side, on our only horizon. We will continue to work on strengthening the EU. Together, at 27, we will continue working to protect our citizens and to equip them to deal with the challenges of our time. Among others, this will involve, number one, an ambitious new Green Deal that will help to reconcile our economy with the planet and turn the EU into the world's first climate-neutral continent by 2050. Number two, we will also do more to support Europe's most vulnerable and as we transition to a clean and digital economy. Number three, we will increase funding for Erasmus so that more Europeans have the opportunity to live, study or work in another EU member state. We know that education and research can be a game changer in tackling some of our biggest societal challenges up front. Number four, we will step up our efforts to protect our external borders. Number five, we will deepen cross-border cooperation on security, including, where possible, with the UK as a third country, to tackle gaps in the fight against serious crimes and terrorism in Europe. These are just some of the priorities that the new President Commission Ursula von der Leyen will take forward in the next 5 years. These are the issues that the EU will focus on as it strives to deliver more for its citizens. Ladies and gentlemen, for so much, what will we give in return? We did not create the European Union. We inherited it from our parents and grandparents. It has brought us peace, opportunities, regional development, and a better understanding of each other. It is now our responsibility to take this project forward, to improve it, and when necessary, to change it, to equip it for the next generations. On the 1st of February, 4 days from now, 4 days, the 20 EU member states will open a new chapter of their history. They will continue dismantling barriers between themselves. They will do so without the UK. But we will be willing to build a close partnership with a country which will remain our partner, our ally, our friend. In doing so, we will never lose sight of the unique situation of the island of Ireland. And finally, we will continue to engage as widely as possible in a spirit of openness and respect. Allow me to finish on a more personal note. For many reasons, I regret Brexit. And I sometimes recall that my very first vote as a young French citizen, I was 21, it was in 72, you can just know my age now. The French president, Georges Pompidou, organized a referendum and asked French people to decide themselves about the accession of Ireland, UK, Denmark, and Norway. And despite the fact I was, and I still am, a member of the Gaullist party in my country, I campaigned for the yes. I campaigned for the accession of the UK. And I never regret this vote and this campaign. I will always continue to believe that we are better off together than alone, especially in today's world. That is why I will remain a patriot of my country and European at the same time. But I will also always have profound respect for the UK, its people, its culture, its great leaders, and its solidarity with the rest of Europe during the darkest hours. That is why, at the beginning of this new chapter for European history, of this new journey, I would sincerely like to wish the UK well. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to do so here in Northern Ireland tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed for that wonderful talk. We have a short period of time for some questions, and Mr. Barnier has kindly said that he will take some questions during the next session. There are going to be microphones which will enable the questioner to be heard. So who will start for us now? Okay, there's a question there at the back. The microphone can go. The lady at the back, just wait for the microphone to come. Thank you. Yeah, lady with the blonde hair at the back there.
Do you agree with Leo Varadkar that
Can you tell me who you are?
Oh, sorry, I'm Deborah McAleese from UTV.
Sure.
Good evening.
Good point.
Do you agree with Leo Varadkar that the EU will be the stronger team in post-Brexit trade talks? And do you have concerns about Northern Ireland's economic future?
I'm sure that you are a strong team, yes, sure. But I remember that once in Brussels, at that time I gave a press conference in the press room of the Euro Commission, and one of your colleagues of BBC, I remember, asked me, Mr. Barnier, can you explain us what are the concessions you are ready to give? I can just, no problem, I can keep this point. Can you explain to us what are the concessions you are ready to give to the UK during these negotiations? It was 2 years ago. And my answer was clear. I'm not ready, and I'm not in the feeling to ask concession to the UK and to give concession to the UK. This is an extraordinary negotiation, unusual negotiations. The UK decided to leave. It's not our choice. We are not leaving the UK. The UK is leaving the EU. So we have to find the best compromise for the orderly Brexit. And my goal, my wish, my work was dedicated only for the last 3 years to find the way to organize this divorce in an orderly manner. Now we are in the second stage because everything must be rebuilt. I think this point must be clear. Huh? We have to rebuild everything. And the UK, on its side, will have to rebuild everything with so many third countries and partners in the world. But for us, with the UK, we have to rebuild everything and to secure everything for the future in new agreements. So I'm not willing to ask concession to the UK or to give concessions. We have to find the most balanced agreement for the future relationship. So I forgot your second point.
Do you have concerns about the economic future of Northern Ireland?
Yes, I have concern because it was a key point of my speech. Perhaps I can begin again to.
No, I think you made the point.
More simply, I will give you my speech by paper, just for you to read it tonight or this week, next weekend. I still have concern because I still have concern, first of all, for the peace. I know the peace is fragile. It's the reason why when I was in Dungannon or some other place, I understand clearly that the key point is about people, much more than about trade or economy. It's about people. Huh? And my thoughts were day and night about the peace in Ireland, working for this withdrawal agreement. And now I think that compromise we found with Boris Johnson is good for Northern Ireland. It is my profound conviction. And we have to implement this complex but workable operational agreement in the best way as possible. So we have to work to put all the to put in place the implementation of this withdrawal agreement and this Irish protocol in the best way as possible. And I will do my best for the economy and the stability of Northern Ireland.
Thank you. There's a question there at the back. Yes, the microphone's there. Thank you.
Will Leach, BBC Northern Ireland. Michel Barnier, can I assure you that we all did listen very carefully to your speech, but despite all that you've already said, is there any potential deal which might be done by the end of the transition period, at the end of this year, which might avoid, which might prevent checks on goods moving from Great Britain here to Northern Ireland? Is there any deal possible?
But the text is very precise. No? I always tell the truth to everybody. And we have to implement this treaty. It is an international treaty, a legal treaty, a binding treaty for both sides, and we will implement this deal in all its dimensions. So you know that there is a joint committee. We have to work for the joint committee, but we will work. My point is, we tried during this negotiation with Theresa May first and after with Boris Johnson to square the cycle, if I may say. Square the cycle. Peace in Ireland, definitively. All Ireland economy, which is linked. Protecting the integrity of the single market, that means protecting the EU consumers and the EU businesses. And number four, for the Northern Ireland territory to be part of the custom territory of the UK. This is the 4 points. And in the middle, that means no border. So we have to find, we found the way to square the cycle. Huh? So not without the UK, with the UK, with the government of London. Huh? And now, I just want to say that we have to make sure that this Irish protocol will work. Huh? And I'm sure that if it works, thanks to the support of everybody, it will be good for Northern Ireland. I'm sure of that.
Thank you. There's another question at the back there. Could the microphone go to the person there? Thank you very much.
Oh, hello, Mr. Barnier. Amanda Ferguson from Reuters News Agency. How concerned are you that Prime Minister Boris Johnson continues to insist that there'll be no checks whatsoever between Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK?
You have to ask him the question. Huh? I know what is written in this text, which is, once again, an international treaty ratified by the House of Commons, in the next few days ratified by the European Parliament, and we have to respect this text in all its dimensions.
Thank you. There's a question at the back on the left-hand side, right at the end there. I'm going in the order people saw me. So could the microphone go over to my left there? But no, the next person was before you, just there at the end. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Katy Hayward. I'm from UK Interchanging Europe and Queens. Thank you for the shout-out, by the way. I want to follow on from Amanda's question, recognising that the Prime Minister has stated emphatically, which means without doubt that there'll be unfettered access on the movement of goods both ways. And I hear in your speech you're saying emphatically, without doubt, that there will not be frictionless trade between Britain and the island of Ireland. And my question is, what are the consequences of not fully implementing the protocol, of it not being properly implemented on entry points into Northern Ireland?
Thank you.
I just say that leaving the EU, leaving the single market, leaving the custom union, it's the choice of the UK. will have consequences. And what I saw in the past, in the last 3 years, that many of these consequences has been underestimated in the UK side, or not so well explained to the people. So now we have to face the reality and to be realistic. There will be no possibility for frictionless trade between the EU and the UK after the Brexit. At least we will have control on goods, because we have the duty, the responsibility to protect the EU consumers and the EU businesses. It is the core of the single market, built with the UK during 47 years. I've been the commissioner for the single market for 5 years, at the heart of the crisis. And we have rebuilt with the UK the architecture of regulation to draw the lesson of the financial crisis. But there will be no compromise on the single market. Never, never, never. It is our main asset on the EU side. The main reason why the American president or the Chinese president respect us today is the single market. With now, next week, at the end of this year, 400 million and 50 million, 450 million consumers and citizens, and 22 million businesses. It is our main asset. Never the EU will compromise, fragilize, or unravel the single market. Never. And you have to take into account this reality to get the explanation or the reason why we conclude such an agreement with Boris Johnson. No? And now my wish, if I may say, after this third question at the same point, is to ask you, with humility, to use your energy and to ask the leaders and to everybody to use the energy to implement this agreement as it is. And we are ready to be realistic, to be flexible, to be pragmatic. I'm a pragmatic person, despite the fact I am French. I ask you to understand that we have to implement this agreement, which is a key point for the stability of this island and also for the credibility and the trust we must give to this withdrawal agreement. And to be frank, the capacity we must have together, UK and us, to implement in a good faith and carefully and rigorously this agreement will be very useful for the success of the next negotiation.
Thank you. There was another question at the back on the left, and then there are a couple of questions at the front, but we'll take the one at the back if the microphone can. Yes, please. Thanks very much.
Hello, my name is Dagmar Schick. I'm Professor of European Union Law.
I don't see you, unfortunately, because of the light.
Oh, sorry about this.
No, it's okay.
It's fine. By Northern Ireland standard, I'm a blow-in, and I'm asking a question that goes away from the last questions. So you mentioned that the agreement is very good for Northern Ireland. And I've seen some legal blogs, especially from Germany, saying it's a little bit too good for Northern Ireland. And
so the truth can be in the middle.
And demanding, yes, I'm coming to that, demanding that the agreement should be challenged before the European Court of Justice. One, because it actually gives up the indivisibility of the internal market. I do not think that's correct, because Northern Ireland is always a hybrid, and it will be in a hybrid situation, and it will be outside of the EU. And secondly, it says that because of it's so good for Northern Ireland, there will be detriments for citizens in other EU countries, and they should challenge that agreement. Do you see any legal risk? We work lots to build this treaty. This treaty is not a speech, it's not a declaration, this treaty is a treaty, a legal text, and we work a lot with the legal service of the European Council, the Council, and obviously the legal service of the Commission, which is a very respected
and credible legal service. So we took all the precautions, and I hope it will work. Huh? So I think the truth is in the middle. I think this agreement will be good for Northern Ireland and will be good and necessary for the stability of this island. And I think that we have, in the same time, it is the reason of my three previous answers, at the same time we have to give the insurance to the member states, to the businesses, to the consumers, that the integrity of the single market will be protected. It is the point. And everybody here and outside has to understand that we have to protect the single market. But, sometimes it seems to be a little bit curious that some in the UK, because the UK has built the single market with us, I can tell you with a high degree of influence, very high degree. Huh? Sometimes it seems to be very curious that some does not understand why we want to protect the single market. And we will do so.
Thank you. There was a question from a gentleman down here at the front, if the microphone can come round. Let's put your hand up again, would you? Thank you. That's great. Thanks very much.
Hi, thank you, Michel Barnier. Richard Ramsey, Ulster Bank. Clearly, the Brexit vote was a shock to the EU, as maybe to many of us in the UK. You mentioned that Brexit, you regret Brexit, and Brexit is about damage limitation. With that in mind, looking back to the concessions which were offered to David Cameron, is there anything that you think now, with hindsight, maybe an extra concession that you should have given? And if so, what was it?
Thank you.
I am a politician. Huh? I'm not a super technocrat in Brussels. So as a politician, I never worked with nostalgia. Huh? We cannot rewrite the history. Yeah?
Thank you. There's a gentleman here in the white shirt.
This guy is very patient. So the Brexit is a school of patience.
I'm going to get to these two.
Give the microphone to the young guy.
These two questions will have to be the last. So there's a gentleman in the white, and then there's the patient man in the middle. So thanks very much. Yep, that's right. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Hi, Aidan Conley, the Director of the Northern Ireland Retail Consortium. Over this past 3 years, one of the very few good things that has come from this process is the amount of access and the amount of conversations that the business community in Northern Ireland has had with the EU, with the Commission and with your task force as well. In fact, the VAES agreement within Maysdale and the Qualified Persons Agreement within Maysdale was because we asked those questions and you delivered on them. My question is, can you give us a firm commitment today that going through to phase 2 and when it comes phase 3 of these negotiations, that you will commit to continuing to listen to the Northern Ireland business voice and to the voice of Northern Ireland households as well?
Yes.
It's always great when you get crisp questions, but even better when you get crisp answers, so thank you. This is going to be our final question, so thank you.
My name is Conor McArdle, I'm a master's student here at Queen's. You spoke eloquently, Michel Barnier, about the peace process, and I was born in '97, so I thankfully, like thousands of young people in Northern Ireland, grew up with no knowledge of the Troubles and an expectation and a hope for the future. Brexit puts a lot of that into doubt and puts a lot of worry for the thousands of young people at this university and all across Northern Ireland. I just wonder, what is your message to the young people 4 days out from Brexit? What is your message to young people in Northern Ireland?
You have the power to express your views. You have the power to vote. Now in the future, you have the power to change. And nobody can prevent you to remain European, in addition to be a citizen of Northern Ireland. Nobody.
Thank you. We've had a wonderful evening. 3 words of thanks before we close. First, thanks to all of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here for this important event. Second, thank you to the William J. Clinton Leadership Institute at Queen's University Belfast. And then we have to come to an end because that's the schedule. So, but mainly, can you please show a very warm appreciation for Michel Barnier.